Hi, this is Trey Pass. I'm going to do a reaction to another Mr. Nightmare story. This one is 3 scary true horror stories. I think I got that right. I think. Anyway, like I said, I love doing these Mr. Nightmare ones. So I think that he has a couple of new ones. So this will be the first of, I think, of a couple. So let's do this. I'll be right back with my reaction. Okay, let me put headphones in. Okay, here we go. Right now, go. Scary true stories. Story 1 by Michael Welch. Boom, boom.
When I was around 12,
Okay.
I had the one bedroom in the house that wasn't on the second floor.
Okay.
My parents' house was a high ranch, so when you entered the house, it split off to 2 floors. One half flight of stairs going upstairs and one downstairs.
Okay.
The downstairs level had the den, the garage, my bedroom, and a bathroom. The other 3 bedrooms in the house were all upstairs.
Okay.
Since I grew up the oldest and the only boy in the house with 2 sisters,
Okay.
I got the room downstairs because it was the biggest and technically the coolest room. After I turned 10, my parents gave my twin bed to my little sister and I got a full-size bed,
Okay.
which was a bit of an upgrade because the room was big and could certainly fit a bigger bed.
Okay.
When I was 12, my little sisters were around 5 and 8, so at this age I would be allowed home alone, but my 5-year-old sister wouldn't be left alone with me, and my 8-year-old sister would only be left alone with me if my parents weren't going to be gone for too long.
Okay.
If they'd be gone for longer periods of the day, then one of my parents would take both of my sisters.
Okay.
For this short period of time, I'd say like 3 nights in a row, maybe a little more, I was waking up in the middle of the night for no reason, and I'd have trouble falling back asleep. Considering I was 12 years old, I knew I shouldn't have been having sleeping problems at that age. I was sleeping with the fan on next to my bed because it was a hot couple of days in the middle of the summer,
Okay.
so I wasn't sure what exactly was waking me up considering the fan provided a steady white noise. One of these nights, I got up after waking up to refill my glass of water. I went to the bathroom right outside my bedroom, and as I was filling it up, I thought I heard something come from inside my room.
Oh.
I turned off the faucet and then listened, but now there was nothing, just the sound of the fan. I walked to the doorway in my bedroom, and I couldn't tell what it was, but something was creeping me out about my room now.
Oh.
I went upstairs to the living room and decided to sleep on the couch that night. I fell asleep eventually, but that same night, again, I woke up, this time to noises from the kitchen.
Oh.
I saw the glow of the light from the fridge and the sounds of someone rummaging through it.
Jeez.
The way that floor was set up had the kitchen out of view from the couch in the living room. I couldn't see who was there. I heard the fridge door eventually shut, then footsteps walk away and downstairs. I was drowsy, and so I went back to sleep. I believe it was the next day that my mom was folding clothes in my room, and she told me my room stunk and I needed to clean up whatever that smell was. I ignored her because I really didn't smell anything. I wish I didn't ignore her though. That night, our dad put the air conditioning on because it was simply too hot. After we all watched a movie as a family, everyone started getting ready for bed. I went to my room and played video games for a little while before getting sleepy. By that time, I turned off the TV and console and rolled on my side to go to sleep like I always did.
Okay.
Tonight I didn't have the fan on because the air conditioning was on, so there was just the sound of the air blowing out from the vents in the ceiling.
Okay.
I fell asleep, but once again I woke up not long after. I didn't know what the sound I heard was. All I heard was the vent fan blowing air. Then when it stopped blowing air, the room was silent, and I heard something.
Oh.
Breathing.
Oh.
But it wasn't my breathing though.
Oh.
I looked around the room. The closet door was shut, so there was no way it was coming from there. Part of my childlike innocence assumed it was my younger sister playing a prank.
Oh boy.
I got on the floor and looked the one place I could think to
No.
look. Under the bed.
No.
I lifted the little piece of cloth that dangles at the bottom of the bed, and there was a very large person laying underneath my bed on a pile of blankets. Their head was facing me, but their eyes were closed. I fell backwards and basically crab walked out of the room screaming, "Dad."
Oh my God.
I heard my parents' door swing open and my parents yelling in concern. I pointed into my room and said, "Under the bed." My dad went and pulled out this very large, dirty-looking man. I remember my dad quite easily physically forcing the man outside as my mom called 911.
Jesus.
I'm sure he went to jail for a while. Or maybe not, because he was homeless, who knows? This did a lot of mental damage to me where I didn't even want to sleep in my own room
I don't
anymore,
blame.
or let alone in that house. I had to sleep in the middle of my parents for a while. Then my dad installed security cameras all over the house. We threw out everything that was opened in the fridge because we had no idea what he put his mouth on in there.
Yeah.
The fear of someone being under my bed stayed with me for a long time, years to come. We don't even know how long he was hiding under my bed.
Jesus.
It could have been a few days.
Jesus.
The smell, the person going through the fridge, the randomly waking up every night for a few days. Whether he meant harm or not, having someone hiding under your bed is every child's biggest nightmare.
Exactly. That's creepy. Story 2. Anderson Kush.
This story is from my great-grandfather, who is currently at the ripe old age of 101. He's told this story at family gatherings for years. He's from the city of Yaroslavl in Russia.
Okay.
I guess it was the Soviet Union when he was born there.
Yeah.
Being from the USSR, of course he served under the Soviet Union during World War II, then fleeing to the United States a few years after to escape communism.
Okay.
He told me this story again recently. It happened not long after the Battle of Veliki Luki, which wasn't a major battle of the war, but it still ended up in a large amount of Soviet and German bloodshed, as most battles at the time did. It was the evening, and according to my great-grandfather, it was very cold that night, like hellish cold.
Okay.
They were in a small house/building that was one of the few with no damage to it, which made it nice because it was warm. Him and his comrades were celebrating with drinks, songs, laughing, and joking, what you could imagine a celebration would look like. At some point in the evening, 2 fellow soldiers walked into the building. My great-grandfather and his friend Sergei didn't care for these 2.
Okay.
It was apparently because they were loudmouths and were just unpleasant guys.
Okay.
Sergei asked my great-grandfather if he wanted to go out and have a smoke. He agreed, and the 2 put on their heavy coats and walked out into the freezing cold air. My great-grandfather pulled out a cigarette, as did Sergei, and then he lit both of their cigarettes. They were talking for a while, both enjoying their cigarette and basking in the glory that came along with winning the battle that had been going on for about 2 months.
Okay.
After my great-grandfather finished his cigarette, they were both about to go back inside when they heard what sounded like a man scream from the woods in the distance.
Oh.
Fearing that it was the scream from one of their comrades, possibly being attacked by a patrol of pissed-off Germans, they went back inside quickly and grabbed their guns. Because of the fact that there might be armed Germans, they got a bunch more of their fellow soldiers to run into the woods with them.
Okay.
My great-grandpa mentioned that as he got deeper into the woods, he started to get a weird feeling, like dread and fear. When they couldn't hear screaming anymore, my great-grandpa suggested that they all split into duos and search for whoever it was. Sergei went with him, while the others went off in their own duos.
Okay.
After about 2 minutes of walking through the dark, cold woodlands, my great-grandpa said that he could hear faint crying, like someone was in pain.
Oh.
Sergei heard this too, so they walked to where they heard the crying sounds. They started seeing drops of blood in the snow, so they both began to take the situation as more of a threat than they were earlier. It still gives me chills when my great-grandpa tells me this part. When him and Sergei got to the source of the crying sound, they had found the most bizarre and disturbing scene they had witnessed. 2 German soldiers on the ground, one of them dead, one alive. One of them had their uniforms ripped and bloodied. The alive one was cowering by a tree, muttering stuff in German.
Jeez.
He didn't notice my great-grandpa and Sergei right away. My great-grandpa then walked towards the other body. The corpse was horrifically mutilated, missing limbs, skin ripped off the face. His uniform was shredded and it looked like he had been scalped.
Jesus.
Another thing that stood out to my great-grandpa was the smell. He couldn't describe the smell, saying it wasn't like a dead body, but more like chemicals. The corpse looked fresh. Sergei investigated the living soldier, who then, noticing Sergei, jumped back in terror, as if he had been traumatized. He was shouting stuff in German. It was only then that my great-grandpa noticed that his leg had been torn apart and his chest was bloody.
Jesus.
He said he could remember that German screaming something like "Das Kolas" or something similar. Sergei pulled out his pistol and put the German out of his misery with a single shot to the head. Almost immediately after this, my great-grandpa described hearing moaning-like noises. And that's when a very tall thing started running in the darkness away from them. Afraid, Sergei and great-grandpa started shooting erratically in the direction of the thing. The other men ran over, but the thing was gone. All of the men were reprimanded when they got back to the village, but a report was sent to the high command. It was never investigated further. My great-grandpa claims that it was the most terrifying experience of his life.
I can imagine.
It makes him stressed when thinking back on the sight of that mangled German and that thing.
Wendigo. Could have been Wendigo. Story 3 by Anonymous.
This happened when my fiance Morgan and I just moved into our house together in a quiet little town.
Okay.
We still live in this house. It's a modest, cute little house, perfect for us and a couple of kids if and when we decide to have.
Okay.
We met one of the neighbors right off the bat. They seemed nice. They were an older couple in their late 60s.
Okay.
The neighbors on the other side were pretty far away, so we didn't meet them for a while. We were still in the unpacking and furnishing phase. It might have been week 2 of living in the house. We were exhausted by every night, having to work our jobs and then also setting up the house and unloading. Morgan was cooking pasta in the kitchen. I was sitting at the table talking to her while on my laptop shopping for area rugs. It was a little stuffy in the house, so I was going to go slide open the back door, but as I got to it, I looked into the backyard and noticed someone sitting in one of the chairs. He was kind of hunched over with his head down. When I say I almost shit myself when I saw it, I'm not kidding. I whispered Morgan's name and said, "Don't scream," but there's a man in the yard. She walked over to look outside and gasped. She grabbed me and kind of hid behind me and said, "Go say something."
Go say
no,
something.
wait, don't. Truth be told, I myself didn't know if I should go out there or not.
Call the cops.
I'm not the biggest man, to be
Call
honest.
the cops.
And even though this guy had his back to us and was sitting down, he looked like he was bigger than me. Morgan suggested I knock on the glass and yell at him to
No,
leave.
call the cops.
I didn't want to do it though. I was scared.
I don't blame you.
The backyard is huge, but right outside the backyard door is a patio with the leftover furniture. The lights in the yard weren't on. We just saw him through the interior lights shining through the glass door, which meant he had to know we were in here. I said fuck it, knocked on the glass and yelled, "Hey, you need to get off our property." The man turned around and looked at me. He then got up with this half smile, almost like he was laughing. He looked 50. He had a really long gray beard and tattoos down to his wrists. He walked up to the glass. I made sure the door was locked. He stood on the other side of the glass door and shifted his gaze to Morgan. He started licking his lips and saying vile shit. I yelled, "All right, I'm calling the police." I closed the sliding blind to get him out of our faces. I called 911 and told the operator to please hurry and send police to our house. I could still hear the man on the other side of the door, now speaking at a very high volume, almost yelling, still saying disgusting things about Morgan. I put the phone to the glass so the operator could
Get
hear
a
it.
weapon.
He made me stay on the phone until police would show up. Eventually it went quiet outside, and so I took a peek out the glass and the guy was gone. Still, I couldn't wait for police to arrive. And when they did, they searched the backyard, took a police report, and left. We thought it was over. But later on that night, when we were in the living room watching TV, we both agreed we heard something from outside in the yard. I went over to the window and kinked the blind, just enough to see that man outside again. He had a cigarette in his hand. He was talking to himself, or trying to talk to us, facing the house. He noticed the kink in the blinds, because he ran over to the window. I jumped back, and he started pounding on the window, saying all these awful, sick things he wanted to do to Morgan. I told her to go upstairs. I didn't want her to hear this anymore.
Get a weapon.
I yelled, "I'm gonna call the police again," and then the pounding stopped, and he went silent. I waited a few seconds before kinking the blind again, and he was gone. I went upstairs to go comfort Morgan, who was visibly shaken. I told her he was gone, when in hindsight I should have called the cops again. Downstairs, I heard bumping and knocking. I went halfway down the stairs and heard bumps on the back door and the doorknob twisting and turning. He was trying to get into the house. I grabbed the phone in the kitchen and called 911 again, once again begging the operator to send police now. This time the police arrived a lot quicker, and I didn't alert the man outside that they were coming. But unfortunately, by the time they showed up, that man disappeared again. It's very likely he just ran off into the trees deep in the backyard. He didn't come back again that night. The next day, we went around knocking on neighbors' doors, both introducing ourselves to those we hadn't met yet and asking them if they knew anyone matching the description of that man. What we found out was disturbing. A few doors down from us knew that man. He was known for beating his ex-wife and having a drinking and drug problem, and generally just regarded as very dangerous. He lived around the block from us in a small, rundown house. That's the scariest part. We reported him to the police, but since we didn't have him on video, we couldn't press charges. We don't know if he still lives there because we haven't heard from or seen him in a long time. I hope it stays that way.
Shoot. You need to get a weapon. That's... Jesus. Ugh. Okay. Those are 3 creepy stories. Ugh, that last one. Oh my God. Yeah, you need a weapon. Especially you're in there. Yeah, like a weapon. Or yeah, or like I said, I sleep with a baseball bat. Yeah, take that bat and go outside and go to work on his ass. He ain't gonna be too up to making dirty words if he can't speak. Beat him to death with that bat. But yeah, you definitely should have called the cops first thing when you first spotted him. Call the cops so the cops could have caught him there outside instead of yelling at him through the glass, giving him a hint. You should have called the cops, and definitely get cameras around your house so you can see exactly. And you may have to get a dog or something so you can have somebody get a dog and a gun. If you can, your state, whatever state you're in, you can get a licensed gun. Get a gun. So exactly, you can't unless because if the guy lives down the block, and you can't make sure there's something you can do to because like you said you can't just report say oh yeah he was here, but cops can't do anything unless they actually you make a report. I mean you can make a report, but unless they actually see him doing something, they can't arrest him or charge him with anything. But you don't want to take that chance that he'll come back and do something, especially the way he was talking about your girlfriend or your wife, I guess. I know, but in any event, exactly, put some security on that house, and like I said, get weapons. I don't know why you stand there and alert the guy. You should have just called the cops straight out, and so the cops could catch him sitting in your yard, where he's basically trespassing. Okay, and they can take him off. But anyway, and then the second story with the Russians and the Germans soldier. You think maybe that was a bear or something? Yeah, maybe a bear. It was Russia. Well, you said they're in World War II, right? So maybe it could have been a bear, right? That attacked the friend and attacked him. Maybe I was gonna say Wendigo, but that's just a legend. But of course, that is frightening to see a human being, especially in a war. You expect people to be shot and stuff, but not to see people ripped apart and stuff. That got to freak you out and always stay in your memory. To see people ripped apart, that's got to be horrific. No wonder that story stays with the grandfather. That's something that you won't forget. Seeing people mangled to death, because in war, I know war, you see people shot and stuff, and maybe even head blown off and all that stuff. But seeing somebody ripped apart literally, it's got to freak you out. Okay, now the first story, which was probably the freakiest one, with the guy actually living in the house, a homeless guy actually living underneath in your room, the little kids. Oh my God! And if the mother smells something in the room, well, you think she would go in the room and see where that smell is coming from. But thankfully she didn't anyway, because that could have been horrific. She'd have went and discovered the homeless guy who had attacked her. But oh my God, I can see how that would traumatize a kid. A guy was actually sleeping underneath your bed and actually in your house eating your food. Oh my God, that's just got to be freaky. Maybe the homeless guy was sleeping in the house before they moved in, and then because what was that movie that Ronald's? I think it was Ronald, right? It was called Ronald. I think they came out in the 70s on ABC. Where I think it was a kid named Ronald. I think what happened? I think his parents died or something in a car accident or something, and then he lived in the house. He lived like in between the walls, right? Right? Because a new family moved in, and he it was called Ronald. I think it was called Ronald, and he lived within the walls and stuff from the house. But that's got to be freaky. A big homeless man, underneath your bed, especially your little kid. That gotta, oh my God. That got to freak you out completely. I don't blame him for not wanting to sleep in that room, not wanting to be in that house. Homeless guy actually, was actually living in your house, literally. Oh my God, that's got to be freaky. Okay, super freaky. But anyway, let me know what you think of this Mr. Nightmare Stories. These are 3 good stories, really scary and really freaky. Okay, like I said, I think the first story was it was the scariest. Then the second one. Then the third one, I think, and then the second one, because that was a story told to him. But the first one, the kid, experiencing that guy, a homeless guy, it's got to be scary to a to a little kid. And then the third story with the guy actually, banging on the window and saying all those disgusting things that he wanted to do to the girlfriend. Oh my God, like I said, you got to get a weapon, man. You can't be just in your house all vulnerable and stuff, just standing there and just, You know, come on, expose for one instance, like you had to go to work or something, and she was in the house by herself. Come on, that's just, no. You got to get a alarm system, some cameras, okay, and a weapon, okay, a weapon and and definitely maybe even a dog, okay, that would be good, okay, and then again report that guy to the police, okay, so they're aware of this guy, wandering to some other people's neighbor, other people's backyards and stuff, and say all the disgusting things. So you don't want to take a chance, and I don't blame that girl for being, your wife for being freaked out by this guy saying all the disgusting things. That would make, that would terrify a person to want to be left in there by herself. Suppose, like I said, she gets home before you or something, or you have to go out and something. She wouldn't want to stay in the house by herself. No, with that creepy guy in the in the neighborhood. Come on, that's no. Anyway, links to my social media in the description box: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Also have a link down below to Mr. Nightmare's channel in the description box as well. Also have a link down below to my other channel, to my main, my other channel, Paul's Views and Opinions as well. Also link down below to my Patreon. I want to say a special thank you to my patron. His name will appear in this video somewhere. I want to say thank you for supporting me, always having my back. And again, my patron's only $5 a month. Tons of content on there, tons of unedited content on there. Everything from Marvel shows to DC shows to Star Wars shows to movies, okay, to The Boys Season 3. Follow link down below. Check it out. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps the channel, and I truly appreciate it. Also, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you know when I upload new content to this channel. And this is Trey Pastor saying so long, and take care.